I submitted last Friday. Yay! Hi, my name is Dina Mahendl. I'm a doctoral researcher at Leipzig University and I do videos about research in the Arctic. However, I haven't posted in quite a while, which is because I was pretty occupied with finishing my PhD thesis, which I'm happy to say I submitted last Friday. Yay! Alright, now I have to wait until it's reviewed and until I have the defense. However, I'll be staying in Leipzig a bit longer, so I'm continuing as a postdoc in the same research group. I was asked to do a little kind of typical workday video on here. However, I don't really feel comfortable bringing the camera to the office and vlogging my whole day. So I thought I would do a very comfortable video today, just sitting down, sharing with you what I usually do in a day, what PhD life kind of is like, was like. So make yourself comfortable, maybe grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea. So I got here green tea with a bit of oat milk, and let's get into it. So I'm kind of an early bird. I usually get up at 6 in the morning. Then I first feed the cats and then myself, so make myself some breakfast, get myself ready and walk to the office because I kind of enjoy the little bit of exercise in the morning. So I'm usually at the office between 7:30 and 8, then start my work day. And I guess I'll finish between 4 and 5, depending on how much there is to do and how long my lunch break was. Here I have to say, in Germany you get paid to do a PhD, so you get the salary, and you fall into the same salary scheme as postdocs. However, as a postdoc you usually have a full-time, so 100% position, whereas as a PhD you have anywhere between 50 and usually 75% contract. 50% is very uncommon nowadays in meteorology, so I started with a 65% position and now I'm on a 75% position. And the idea is that you usually need to work more than the, let's say for 75%, 30 hours a week to actually be able to finish a PhD within the 3 or 4 years that you have for your contract, and the kind of remainder that you're not paid is the time that you're working on your thesis. So for me during the PhD it was pretty different depending on how much workload there was currently, and I had weeks where I worked probably a bit more than 40 hours and other weeks where I was closer to the 35 or maybe even 30 hours. Because I submitted my thesis a bit early and I'll be transitioning then to 100% in July, I'm still currently at 75%, which means that I have to do 30 hours of work, and I'm trying to keep it more chill and actually work the 30 hours and not too much more. However, that works more or less depending on how much stuff I want to do. But I think that's enough about my working hours, and it's probably more interesting what I actually do during those hours. And for that I thought we could look at my calendar, because usually on Mondays in the morning I try to look what are the meetings, events that I have during the week. I put them in my calendar as well, but it's just writing them down to have it in mind and to not forget about anything, and also to be able to plan then spontaneously when a new meeting comes along during the week. In general, in the morning I like to write to-do lists, because that's just how I prefer to work, and just write everything down that I want to accomplish during that day. So let's look at my calendar for this week. Yesterday I attended a panel discussion on the topic of sustainability as a speaker. I got invited to that, which was really exciting, also quite a cool event. Fortunately, not that many people attended, but it was fun and kind of a nice learning experience also for myself. Then today in the morning was the defense of a colleague of mine, so his PhD defense. He did his PhD at the University of Bremen, so I attended online via Zoom and listened to his talk and him answering questions during the discussion. Tomorrow I have a meeting it's called Mia's Climate Diary. That's a outreach project from the research project that I'm funded from. It's a blog for children and trying to explain them facts about climate change, weather, so different topics in meteorology, especially focusing on polar research. And just recently I took over within a team to coordinate that project. So we're meeting tomorrow to kind of get things on track. Then in the afternoon, a master's student is coming to our office. I'm co-supervising him together with my PhD supervisor, so we're gonna see what his progress is. And then, to check, Thursday there's another Zoom meeting in the morning. So this is a meeting for researchers associated with New Orleans, and then we have the snowfall camera there from my working group. I will attend, and I'm pretty interested. There will be a talk about modeling of mixed phase clouds, which I'm going to listen to. And then afterwards I have a meeting with my PhD supervisor. He's pretty great, actually does weekly meetings with all his PhDs and postdocs. It's also really helpful to make good progress with one's work. In the afternoon, there's a colloquia talk which I want to attend. So we oftentimes have guest scientists visiting Leipzig, and then they usually do a talk. So during the semester, there will be 1 or 2 talks a week, but not every week. And tomorrow there's a pretty interesting one, which I want to attend, and maybe want to attend in person. So it's at a different building. I'll have to see. Otherwise, I'll just log in on Zoom. And then Friday, I actually have an interview because I got asked for a magazine that's university magazine, but not directly associated. I'm pretty interested in that. I have not done interviews before, I think. We'll see how that works out. However, then afterwards, we always have group meeting at 12:30, so that's every week. And since we're a very small group, I think we're 6 people, we do them jointly together with another group who has a very similar research focus. So we're then between 10 and 15 people. And that's also always pretty nice that we usually have a scientific contribution. We kind of switch around and just share our progress for the week. All the other time, the calendar I have for myself, and I can structure for myself how I want to plan my working day. And doing science, especially during the PhD, kind of the main part of my work is sitting in front of a computer and looking at data, programming. I'm using Python, doing data analysis since I'm working with observational data. During my PhD, I worked predominantly with data obtained during aircraft measurement campaigns. So from instruments that are put on aircraft, we fly through and above clouds, get data from that. Now during the postdoc, I'm also extending to ground-based instruments. So for example, snowfall camera, cloud radar on the ground, and satellite data, since I'm working within a satellite project. So if I want to work with data that I have not collected myself, which is most often the case, I first have to get that data either directly from colleagues or download them from the kind of online data archives. And then the task is to read the data in, which is often pretty easy, but sometimes a bit more tricky depending on the data format, and then actually do science with the data. So usually there's some pre-processing that has to be done to actually make the data workable, and then apply more or less statistics on the data to get some kind of information that you're interested in. For that, of course, you have to know what's kind of your research question, what are you interested in finding out, and then come up with ways to actually get that out of the data. So for example, during the PhD, I was interested in quantifying a process called riming, which occurs when in clouds you have both ice crystals and liquid droplets which are super cool. So we're talking at temperatures below 0. When they come into contact, the water, because it would like to be frozen, freezes on the ice crystal. So this process is called riming, and it's pretty hard to quantify, but I wanted to do that using airborne data. And so I developed a kind of algorithm, so what we call a retrieval scheme, to quantify the amount of riming from cloud radar and cloud in situ data. And this is done with statistic tools in a iterative way to get that out from the input data and some more assumptions. I know that sounds pretty vague, but just that you get a very rough idea of what I'm doing. So I'm sitting in front of the computer trying to program that algorithm, and that's a lot of trying around until things work. Oftentimes then things don't work, and then if you have some results that you're more or less happy with, plotting them, presenting them in a nice way. Most of the time, things like that are also done in a group or with colleagues, with other scientists together. Maybe not the day-to-day stuff, but at least getting the data and also showing the results, discussing with other people. Does that make sense? Do you get where I'm going at? Do you think there's any problems with what I'm doing? What else should I be looking at? But that's more or less developing methods, and often we're really interested in research questions. For example, I was also interested in what determines this kind of variability of ice in clouds that we see from observations. And then I have to come up with hypotheses. Okay, based on things I already saw in data, I think in that case riming plays a role, but I actually have to quote-unquote prove that or disprove it. Or maybe during the process I come up with a more interesting question. Or maybe I find out, yes, it does play a role, but why? What conditions favor that process? And then you can dig further into that. Also reading papers, so published journal articles from other research groups, really helps in finding kind of interesting research questions and what you could do in your own research. And then once you have results that you're satisfied with, or at least more or less, and think you can actually put them in a story, the probably most important step comes, which is writing your own paper. So collecting everything together, presenting everything in a visually nice way, and then writing down what you did, what results you achieved, and how you interpret them. And that can then get submitted and hopefully published in a scientific journal. And that again is most often done in a team of co-authors who then also either directly contribute to the paper or at least read everything through, get feedback, for example, if they provided the data that you worked with. Another part of the job is presenting your results in scientific conferences. So that's also something that one is often working on. For example, if you have an upcoming conference and have to prepare a presentation, so you make the slides and think about what you actually want to say there. I personally get bored if I just do one thing, so I usually do a bunch of these in parallel. So a typical workday would then probably be most of the time spent doing data analysis, so sitting in front of the computer and having there my Python script, try to get something out of the data. If I'm already writing on a manuscript to submit to a journal, then of course a bit of writing will be part of the day. If I have an upcoming conference or workshop or talk, I'll be preparing slides for the talk. And of course also reading papers, probably less than I should do because I get bored with that. But yeah, then you can just switch it up. And the time that's then basically left, I can spend doing, for example, outreach stuff. So besides YouTube, I do things like the panel discussion that I attended, Mia's Climate Diary, which I mentioned, and also other things that come up at the events. A small part of my job as someone working predominantly with observational data are field campaigns. So I was lucky that during my PhD I got to attend 2 campaigns. So I was in Svalbard twice, once for 3 weeks and once for 4 weeks. So the first time in Ny-Ålesund setting up a snowfall camera, and then the second time attending an aircraft measurement campaign for 4 weeks, also in Svalbard in Longyearbyen. There's also opportunities for kind of smaller scale field activity, let's call it like that. For example, last week we got to set up a similar model, so the predecessor of the same snowfall camera, in a forest next to an insect trap, because turns out it does not only make nice pictures of snowflakes but also of insects, and that can help in classifying which insect, or at least which insect family, and how many of them were there. I also still babysit the snowfall camera in Svalbard, so I have to regularly check if everything's working, if the data transfer is working, and that also then means fixing stuff if anything gets stuck. But I can do that from my computer. During the PhD, I was part of a graduate school, or I guess technically I'm still part of that graduate school. Yeah, I think so. However, we have to do a certain amount of credit points there. So what's mandatory is doing 3 talks in the 3 or 4 years that it takes you to complete your PhD, and then do a certain number of credit points. And I think 2 soft skill courses are mandatory, but other than that you can choose pretty freely what you want to do, and conferences or research stays also count. You can attend winter or summer schools to get credits, or workshops that are regularly hosted by the University of Leipzig. So that's a tiny part, but also something that is occupying time from time to time. However, that's not a lot of extra work, especially since it's distributed over 3 years. But I think that sums it up. I'm sure I forgot something, so if you have questions, please leave them below. If you're interested in doing a PhD yourself in meteorology, maybe that helped somehow, always feel free to ask questions. If you came that far, thank you. I'm sure you'll be bored right now. I would also really appreciate if you subscribe, and otherwise see you again soon. Since I'm switching to PostDoc pretty soon, I'm not sure how much workload my new project will be just yet. So I'm not sure how regularly I'll post. I'll keep posting videos, and hopefully more regularly again now. I think 1 video every month, or 1 video every 2 months is pretty realistic. Okay, but other than that, thank you for watching, and bye bye!